Coming up on Maine Challenge, 3 former Susan Collins voters who won't be voting for her this time. Hello and welcome to Maine Challenge. Getting close to the election now, and we are pleased to welcome to Maine Challenge 3 voters who have voted for Susan Collins in the past and who are not voting for her this time. We're going to try to talk for 27 minutes about that, and we are very pleased to welcome Sheila Manere, David Morse, and Les Fossil. Perhaps starting with you, Sheila, if you could talk about what got you here, briefly, that would be great. And then we'll go to Dave and then to Les. And feel free to talk to each other as well as to me.
Sure.
Sheila.
Thank you, Chuck. So I'm here because in the past 4 elections, I voted for Susan Collins, and I never will do it again. And I hope that we a change in leadership in just less than 2 weeks.
And Dave, how about you?
Well, I used to be a newspaper publisher in Maine. I had quite a few newspapers up and down the coast, and I've known Senator Collins before she ran for office. I've been a supporter of hers for quite a bit of time. For quite a bit of time, every time she ran for office. And I am not supporting her this time at all. And I'm happy to share why.
And Les Fossil.
Yeah, I think I've been a campaign co-chair of Susan's 4 times in the past. But what you should know is I am Leslie Truman Fossil Jr. My father was there with Margaret Chase Smith fighting Joe McCarthy. And Margaret Chase Smith stood up, and Bill Cohen stood up, and Olympia Snow stood up. Susan has been hiding, and that's not what we need in a senator. And it's sad. She's a good pothole senator. She's not a leader, and I wish she were. It's sad.
What's changed, Sheila?
Well, Les is right. She's not a leader. For years, we need someone who will stand up and speak up. And saying you're concerned and disappointed does not do it at all.
Yeah, there are some of us out here who are concerned and disappointed too. Dave.
That's why we're
here.
Sorry.
Well, I could go back to when she first ran for Senate, and I remember saying that she was telling me personally, we sat around and she was saying, I'm only going to run for 1 or 2 one or two terms, and I gave her a lot of slack. I mean, there was a lot of things going on, but then more recently, in fact, she treated me wonderfully. My late wife, when she passed away, Susan reached out to me. We've seen each other personally, and when I've gone down to Washington, I do some lobbying in Washington for the Landmine Relief Fund and some anti-poaching work I do in Africa. And Susan has always been available. She didn't help on any of the issues, but she was there. But what really turned me off was when the Kavanaugh situation. I listened to her excuse for supporting him. And she had been, I had been such a supporter for her for years. I had sat back and said, well, I don't agree with her, but I don't always have to agree with a senator. But then when it started getting into the fact that she was supporting and helping to appoint all these judges, a host of whom didn't even pass the ethics test. And I was beginning to wonder what in the world is going on. And then I went back and revisited the Kavanaugh situation, and I've always supported Susan because she's been pro-choice. That has been my big issue. And Kavanaugh's first decision came down the other side, and I began wondering, who is this woman? And then she started falling right in line with Donald Trump, right down the line, until the hypocrisy of the impeachment, when she waited to the last minute to talk about evidence, and then she voted innocent on both charges. And at that point, I wondered, where is this leadership? Who am I turning? Who are my children being protected by? Can I trust Susan Collins to do that? And I came to the conclusion I couldn't trust her.
And Dave, you've hit it exactly on me. I collect people I trust, and most of the people, other than Sheila, whose relatives I trusted, are in my used to be, and she is no longer. She gave my son his first job. You know, this is somebody who's been my friend, but last January, she knew what was coming with COVID, and she knew that Trump was not qualified as president, and she stood mute. And since then, that's cost us untold lives in this country and treasure. When I was in the legislature, I was the most fiscally conservative guy there on a regular basis. And to see trillions of dollars being wasted because no one had the courage to say what was wrong, our senator didn't, I find obscene. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, I tell you what really hurts, Les, is when after she voted in the impeachment, she said, I think I think he learned his lesson. and all the pundits said, yeah, he learned his lesson. He learned his lesson that he can do whatever he wants. And he has. And even now, last week, Trump tweeted against her and was all upset with her because of something. And I'm thinking, what horrible judgment she has to have made that decision, and still she didn't learn the lesson that this man is not going to be there for the Maine people. He's not going to be there for her. He's going to be there for himself. And I can't support anybody right now, up or down the ballot, that is a Republican. I just wrote a letter to the Lincoln County News this last week. I've seen the way the Republicans have reacted, and Susan has reacted. And I think what you said, Les, hurts. It hurts because this is a woman we all know.
And Sheila, it's your turn. I've been talking too much.
I don't know her personally, but I've watched her through all the years, and her judgment is gone. And how do I know that? It's because the explanations she gives after her votes are more insulting and more upsetting than the votes. To Doug's point, I mean, her speech after the Kavanaugh vote was insulting. Her speech after she voted not to impeach Trump and said that he learned a lesson. Everybody, who doesn't know he didn't learn a lesson? We all know that he didn't learn a lesson. But
here's the thing.
News say that. It's like,
well, actually, I think he did learn a lesson.
well,
Not the one that she thought.
the wrong lesson, right?
Here's the deal from my point of view. I know I'm not the only person who, in this room and in politics, 12-step program for one thing or another. And it is very clear to me, and you see this in politicians all the time, they become addicted to power. And when they become addicted to power, they will say and do anything that will keep them in power. And you're absolutely right about Trump on that. It was obvious from his whole life experience that he had that addiction. With Susan, it crept up on you, but it's there. She doesn't care anything except about getting reelected, and that's sad, but that's what happens to addicts, and when she hits bottom, maybe she can learn something, but she's not there, and certainly Trump isn't.
Well, even on the debate last night, Susan Collins, not the Trump debate,
Yeah.
she was all about the power. What checks she can write for, for organizations and departments because she's got that power. There was nothing about the people. It was all about what she could do because of her government position.
And she can't buy my vote. Sorry.
Exactly. Thank you. I agree.
Being in the newspaper business, it was interesting how many candidates we have seen who say that very thing. They say, look, I have influence, I have seniority, I have the ability to bring the money home to Maine. Well, we all have to realize that at some point, those candidates leave and you have to start over. And to think that we are going to give Susan another 6 years with the attitudes that she's had just because she can write a check. I mean, it could hurt us a little bit. But at some point, every senator is going to leave. And we have to start looking and preparing now. And that's just not enough to say she can write a check. Or somebody else will write us a check.
Help me understand. What is Trump's power over people like Susan Collins? I mean, Susan worked on Bill Cohen's staff. That's when I met her. And Bill Cohen is a stand-up politician. I may not have agreed with everything, but he was a stand-up person. Sue Collins fit in within that organization, in my opinion. But there's some power that Trump seems to have over people, certainly in his party. What is that power? How does he deserve it? How does he acquire it? We can see how he uses it.
It's the primary elections. It's the primaries.
And the Republican Party in this state and around the country has drifted far, far to the right, which is why my McKernan Cup is here. And the moderates are no longer in the party. Chuck and I, when we were in the legislature together, chaired the moderate caucus. There is no moderate caucus anymore. There are no moderates anymore. When the last time I ran for the Senate, and I'm probably certifiably a moderate, the Democrats spent something over $200,000 to defeat me in black money. The Republicans spent $7,000 supporting me in black money. They wanted me to lose. They want the moderates to lose. And so Susan basically had a choice. She had to go to the right to get herself elected, to get to the election, or she had to go independent or retire. And she chose power. I don't know any other way to say it.
Yeah.
Sheila,
Can I go back? Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to get Sheila involved.
It's power and greed.
Yep.
That's what he has taught them. And Susan Collins, I think of any of the senators, has shown that, because in 2016, she wasn't going to vote for him. She said he was unfit. She said he didn't have the respect needed for this job. And now, 2017 and 2018, she voted 94% of the time with him.
Dave.
Chuck, when you look at, and Les can speak to this probably better than I can, but the primaries control so much of these elections, because to get through the primary, in Maine, it's essentially a third Republican, a third Democrat, and a third Independents. So if you only have a small amount of people voting at a primary, that means if you're a Republican senator and you want that nomination, you have to appeal to the Republican Party and those who are going to come out. And they are the Trumpers, the radical right, and Trump does this. And if you watch him in the winter, he did this. He would go to the different states and threaten people, standing senators. Yep. I will go to your primaries. I will get the one going after you. And these might be moderate Republicans, but he said, you swing my way or I'll go after that core base that can oust you in the primary and sometimes in the general election. And they're just afraid of him.
Yeah. It
because
goes
he can do it.
it goes further than that, and that is in the legislature. There was a time, the last time I was there, where a powerful group said to me, "If you don't vote with us, we're going to beat you." And my answer was, "So?" That was not Susan's answer. And what happens is, and Chuck knows this too, is people who you have to oppose every single one of them because on principles or on information you disagree, it gets harder and harder and harder to open your mouth until you finally get mute on anything that's important. And that's what happens. And I don't know how you come back from that. My suggestion is
That's why we need
wait,
leadership.
let me go one more. I
Okay.
want to create a Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the United States because it's clear that all kinds of laws have been violated. And how do we come together as a country? And I think South Africa and apartheid is a pretty good role model for us. Sorry, go ahead.
Wow.
That's why we need new leadership, and that's why I'm voting for Sarah Gideon, because Susan's done.
I know.
I think the
It's sad.
message, and I think the message to Sarah Gideon should be very clear that people are not going to allow the Susan Collins pattern. Sarah Gideon has got to stand up and be independent. She has got to be back and talking to the people because I just don't think politics is going to go on the way it used to.
And you know what I want next? Do you remember the movie Miracle on 34th Street? You guys are old enough. I want to see that in politics. In Utah, the two gubernatorial candidates did that. Why can't we do that? Why can't we reward people for being positive? It's obscene.
Well, I'm sort of, I've already voted. Probably won't be too much of a mystery as to how I might have voted, at least among you guys. But I'm really find myself thinking constantly about what there's a new landscape that's going to happen starting on November 4th. But I can't quite imagine what the landscape is going to be like, what it's going to be like. I think Trump is going to lose. I think that, but he's going to do a lot of damage between his unelection and his Biden's inauguration. But what kind of world are we going to be dealing with in the post-Trump era? And I could talk for a while about it, but I'd like to hear what you think we're going to have starting in January. Let's start with Sheila.
Well, I think, first of all, the last 4 years has woken a lot of people up. So thankfully, more Americans are involved with democracy and our government. So that I hope we see continue, and I think we will, without a doubt. But I think it's going to be January for sure.
Dave, any thoughts on the post-Trump world?
Well, I think this is going to irritate people, but
Good.
well, I've irritated people before. The only pattern we have that something like this has happened is after Richard Nixon resigned.
Yep.
And the Republicans and Democrats wanted to put him on trial. They wanted to everything. And it cost Gerald Ford his election when he pardoned him. Now, I'm not trying to say that we should pardon Trump for some of the things that he's done or will do. But I think that concept of having some sense of humility about supporting our country, protecting our country, and not going through the chaos of years and years of trying to persecute him or prosecute him, there's a message in there that we have to move on from this. And clearly the question is whether Trump can move on from this, because if he continues to attack the country and do things that are treasonous, then we'll have no choice but hopefully that won't happen.
Well, Dave, if you behave, you might get a job with the Trump network.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
But
I'm sure he's going to want me on that list.
Yeah, this is precisely the reason I said Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because I don't want to either do what we did with Nixon, and if you're a student of politics, you'll remember Nixon is the one who did his Southern strategy, which turned the parties into what they are today. It was a mistake not to hold him to account. So I want to hold Trump to account, but I want to do it in a way that's not vindictive. And that's the Truth and Reconciliation. Two other things I want to do, two other schemes. One is I think it's time we tax the PACs. No reason you can't. And if they're open and above board, we reduce the tax. If they're dark money, boy, we hit them hard. The second thing I think we need, which we don't see in Maine as much, is we need national standards for registration and voting. And incidentally, and Chuck will be surprised to hear this, I think it's time that both the Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico become states. We need people who have bought into the system, and we just don't have it, And that's also true if you happen to be American. An amazing number don't want to vote because they think it doesn't make any difference. We've got to make it have a difference.
I think you're going to see a change, though, in the amount of people voting this year. I've already voted.
So.
Chuck, I'm with you. I've already voted myself.
Yeah, it's not a one-time only. It's got to be longer than that.
No, I agree.
I agree. I voted 3 times, so it's okay.
Oh, good. That's Governor Mayor Curley. Vote early and often for Curley.
Yeah. No, it's Chuck. You've raised a really interesting question. I had a group of friends together the other day, and we were talking about the post-Trump time. I mean, there is fear that if he loses, that the period of time from the beginning of November to the 20th of January, the damage that he and his family can do is immense, and to the point of sounds crazy, but somebody said, what if he wants to start a war? What if he wants to do this? He just passed an executive order, what was it, yesterday or the day before, where they can terminate employees with the federal government, used to be part of the union. They can terminate them for no cause. The damage that this man can do is tremendous. And the question is, what are we going to be doing in that 2 or 3 months while he is a lame duck? And a number of friends might say that they think he's going to leave the country. They don't think he'll stay around.
But I hope so.
I think he'll leave the country and go to a country we don't have an extradition treaty with.
Right, exactly.
Apparently, Putin has already prepared a lovely dakar on the in the Crimea for him on the water. I don't know if it'll have enough gold fixtures for him, but it could be one of the options.
I'll pay to have the mausoleum gold plated.
Now we're going down a track I don't want to hear.
Yeah. We are heading to the drain, actually, and we're in the last couple minutes of the show. So maybe you could each sum up your thoughts for us and for our viewers, and we will be wrapping it up in a couple minutes, starting with Sheila.
Oh, well, my view is just, like I said, vote. Don't wait till November 3rd. We have less than 2 weeks to go. But my biggest thing is it's not about policy. It's about leadership. And Susan has ignored her constituents for 4 years now. She's inaccessible to us. She's only accessible to the wealthy and the corporations. So I want new leadership.
I tell my wife that between us we're a full wit, and I'm generally not holding up my half. Together is the way we find truth, not separately. This has just got to stop. This is obscene.
What concerns me are the people who have felt disenfranchised with the political system, which have found comfort in the radical and really bizarre nature of the Trump cult.
Yep.
That these people are feeling that at least here is somebody who has a voice, who challenges the status quo. And I've read and heard a lot about this. We need to find a way to reach out to people who feel disenfranchised
Yes.
and include them in this process. And that's the biggest challenge that I think we face.
Yep, you're right.
The other challenge that we're facing is, let's be honest, Trump has lied every day of his presidency. Literally. And the fact that that's not talked about continuously, we need to find facts and truth back and honesty
Yeah.
as a country, because this is just ridiculous.
Finding our way back to truth. That's our journey.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
Well,
And it's got to come from people who we can trust to talk about it.
absolutely right. Well, that's a great last word for our show. And I want to thank you all, Sheila Monero, Les Fossil, and David Morse. I hope we don't go as long before we see each other again, but thank you very much for being part of Maine Challenge, a production of Lincoln County Indivisible and Lincoln County Television. Thanks all three of you for joining us today, and tell everyone to vote.
Show your support for Maine Challenge and LCTV's programming. We're all about community. Please go to lctv.org to make a contribution. Your support makes us stronger together.